My name is Innocent Mugenga, and this is Learnability, an open-ended exploration of our ability and desire to learn, grow, and adapt. Let's go. In collaboration with Gather, an innovation conference within the intersection of tech, science, business, public sector, and culture, we will be creating the Gather series. In that, we will explore digital democracy, virtual love, urban planning, future of work, information age, and so much more. Join us.
My name is E02, and I do insights for Bannerboy.
Yeah, you're also a researcher within the history of digital advertising.
Yeah, that's kind of my self-given title.
Yeah.
I fell backwards into this industry, and my personality is that I can't just do something, I have to know everything about it.
Oh, yeah.
So it wasn't enough just to be working with banners. I had to know, why do we have banners? Where do they come from?
Yeah.
And that's what's led me to my position that I have. Not my position, but like my viewpoints that I have. Yeah.
So would you mind to share a little bit of what you found during your research into the history?
I think the quick summary
Yeah.
that I've come to is that I view internet advertising, and not banners, but internet advertising, so social media, videos, static images, all those things. I view advertising on the internet like bees.
Oh yeah.
Very few people see a bee land on their arm and think, oh my God, what a beautiful bee. You know, like you're at a picnic or something, bees landing your food. Like very few people are happy about that.
My first instinct is run.
Run.
Yeah.
Like kill it.
Yeah.
Let's put nets up.
Yeah.
Let's keep them away.
Yeah.
Let's remove them from our eyesight. But if bees went away, all of our flowers would die and all of our ecology would die and we would all starve basically.
Yeah.
And that's actually happening right now. That's like the thing. Those pesticides are killing bees.
Yeah,
it's a real life problem.
Yeah.
And I've come to see internet advertising in that same role. That internet or advertising funded services and products on the internet is what makes the internet amazing. Mm-hmm. That's what makes it a democratic world. And I don't mean democratic in like the kind of governmental sense. No. I mean it in the sense that IKEA uses it. Mm-hmm. So IKEA talks about democratic design as design that's accessible to everybody.
Yes.
That you don't have to be rich in order to have nice things. And so I believe that the internet, the power of it is the gathering aspect of it. And advertising, whether you like it or not, is what provided that to us.
Could you give some examples of how the internet has been fueled by it being free?
By it being free.
Yeah. Accessible.
Yeah. I think the first thing that I always come to, and I don't know if it's a really good example or not, but it's the whole revolution that happened in Egypt. The fact that the government had to shut down Twitter to prevent it. Like imagine if everyone in Egypt had to have a paid account, or if there were no free services. The ability to quickly spread that information, and for that information to quickly spread not just within the community that needed it, but for the whole world. I just got like my hair is standing up on my arm right now. For the whole world to instantly see that that's happening, that's so powerful. And it's because Converse is running ads for sneakers. You know, it's like these, these silly
you don't think
things that you're not thinking about. You're not thinking about the bees, but they're doing such an important role for us.
I appreciate the example of Egypt. I recently had Azza Ali on the podcast who was talking about the current situation in Sudan, where they've shut down the internet.
Right.
And that's the main thing they want to put back on right now, because they want to get their message out. They need to communicate with each other and organize and mobilize. Simply fighting for democracy and their human rights. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you.
We will start off with you giving a short introduction of who you are and what you do.
All right. So we discussed this earlier because sometimes you tend to have many hats and many roles. But during daytime, you will probably find me at my PR agency that I have co-founded and that I run. Yeah. Working with marketing, PR, and personal branding. Yeah. But as soon as the clock hits lunchtime or 6 o'clock in the evening, or it turns Saturday, Sunday, you will see me working with Open Act, which is an NGO working to monitorize and raise awareness about politicians' rhetorical framing of immigrants. And the consequences of that we have seen now in El Paso. We have seen it in Norway happening, and we can see it also happening in Sweden.
Oh yeah. I want to actually go into that directly. So Open Act, you work within the space of data and tracking usage of language with the help of data, right?
Yeah.
How do you go about in doing this, and how has data come to become such a huge part in our political discourse?
Well, basically, what data allows us to do is actually measure and put something together that is with an objective result that can show us a transformation over time and really show like real consequences of rhetorics. So data for us from the beginning has been manually going through a lot of data. So what we started doing was that we compared the party leaders' way of phrasing immigrants, and we needed a format that we could compare over time. So we used a TV show that's always been broadcasting political debates for at least a decade. Which is called SVT Agenda, or Agenda, and we started to analyze manually, which meant transcribing words by words what politicians were saying when they were actually talking about immigrants. And we found the system based on previous study how to group certain phrases and words connected to the group. So it could be a negative, positive or neutral choices of wordings. So we went through maybe 50 hours of political debate manually, transcribing, finding words, grouping words together, comparing the results. So we went back in time to 2008. And then until 2018, which was the election year.
How many people are you doing this?
We are five in an analytic team, if you want to call it that. And then we have different experts within rhetorics, professor and so on, that has helped us, developing our process and feedback on our results, because you have a huge responsibility when it comes to handling data, and you always have a human factor when you do it manually. And now going forward, we would like to avoid that by using machine learning, obviously.
How would that work? So the machine learning will transcribe and based maybe of your previous years have some data of how to group these words. Is that about
exactly.
it?
So we use our previous technique, but going forward, we will be able to take in so much more data, which means that the result will be even more relevant. Partly because it will be objective. And it will give a more fair result, so we can compare more formats, for example, and bring out more data. So we have put like the base for our monitoring, what you want to call it, like method. But now we're keen to take the next step. But manually, it's exhausting.
I can imagine. You've done a really great job in just getting this off.
Very special weekends together with political debates and a lot of coffee.
You're listening at the same time. Really,
absolutely.
Word to word.
I dream about this debate sometimes. I'm like, oh my God, 2010. That was an intense year. An intense year,
So what have you learned from this data, and how do you go about publishing it, and what? Maybe that's too many questions. What have you learned from the data?
Depends what kind of answer you want.
Exactly. So what have you learned from the data, and how do you go about publishing your insights?
What we have learned is to, basically, we have learned that data, for us, has helped us to prove a point that people start to talk about. I mean, we have had big collaboration with bigger NGOs fighting for human rights, talking about the consequences of rhetorical framing, like us versus them, and these people are like that, or those people are like that. But we never had like real great studies on how politicians are framing immigrants, for example. So we learned that there is immense power in this kind of data to push politicians and media to use other kind of words.
My name is Suzan, and I am the CEO of The Social Few and head of diversity management at Volvo Car Mobility. And at The Social Few, what we do is basically increase the perspective density in organization in order to create a larger impact in the organization and in society at large.
What do you call that work? It's a diversity agency?
Diversity management agency.
Management agency. Great.
Well, my name is David Khabazzi. I work as head of insights at The Social Few. So I work with the data, and that's the fun part. Because you meet a lot of people. So
How do you go about in working with the data?
Well, we started off with interviewing 300 people in 4 different groups based on language, and we got 800 to 900 data points from these groups. Everything from how you consume things, who you share your inner thoughts with, how do you use the digital media in different ways, how you use your phone, who do you call, everything that's about everyday life, basically. And from that we built algorithms for social media and iterated for a couple of while until it worked very well. And now we can reach 98% of the 6 largest minority groups in Sweden in a very efficient way. So that's basically where we started.
Wow. So you said you did interviews with 300 individuals.
Right.
Just out of curiosity, does your data become better with a bigger group, or like if you would increase the size of the group, would that help improve the data? Or
Sure. It makes it more accurate.
Oh yeah.
So that's a very good question. If we do a qualitative focus groups, and those are perfectly fine to do based on what your target is and your ambitions, but when we do data among 1,000 people in a very specific group, in this case minority group, we find a lot of similarities. You know, so then we can know what the challenges are, depending on the challenge actually, and how we can build trust by having a direct dialogue with these people, and that's very important, because if you don't have a dialogue, then they can't contribute, and we can't understand how we can contribute to build whatever better societies, better companies, better working places, and it goes from everywhere. It's everywhere. So we need to work inclusive in that sense. So the more data, the more accurate, the more efficient. It becomes more transparent. If it's data driven, it's digital. We can use that data for a lot of things, to cross-tabulate the data. We can analyze the data. We can find out why specific things in the society is wrong, or why specific things in a company is not working. You know, so we can tap that and change the processes, or the attitude, or marketing campaigns, or whatever you need to do.
And fundamentally, it's about involving and including minorities within the larger discussions. What happens, like in society? How do you want to live, basically, and what can we do to enable that? Because right now we are talking about minorities. We're not talking with minorities. Sometimes we talk to minorities, and that's a huge problem. So that's why we sometimes even get, when we do send out the surveys, we get answer back like, "Thank you for asking us."
Oh yeah.
Which is that says a lot.
That's very common.
Really? Wow. Okay.
That's very common, specifically when authorities do these quant surveys. It's very common that people say, "Wow, I've been in Sweden for 25 years. This is the first time you're speaking to me in my native language." Because it's always in the native language.
And even if you understand Swedish, which most do, I think we have a picture of that not being the fact. It is different when you get it in your own language.
My personal view, and I guess a view that is shared by many, is that the monetary incentives is sort of what's skewing the ads and the build-up and the collection of data and driving that. How do you see it? Is it the monetization that's the problem, or is it deeper than that?
It's so dense. I think I would start with saying that I always think of these things, and not always, it's a lie. I have come to think about all these things as that phrase, like the road to hell is paved in good intentions. I really don't think at any point in time there was someone like in a chair in front of a fire, like, oh my God, I'm going to ruin the internet. No. Like every step of the evolution of internet advertising has been done in order to, yes, make more money, but make more money so that we can have better services and make, it's sure there is a capitalist side and there are people out there just to make money. I'm not going to deny that. But a quick example is pop-up ads. Probably universally the first thing most people think of as like the most annoying thing on the internet.
Yes.
The guy who invented that, I think, 5 years ago, publicly apologized and said he had no idea what he was doing at the time because it came from a place of pure intentions. So you have like a traditional ad format. Think about a newspaper or a magazine. You're reading some content and then there's a little ad, you skip over that and you keep reading your content. The idea was, well, what if we took the ads out of the content? And so the page was just pure content and the ads popped up on the side. It had a very pure...
That idea sounds good, like
right?
just there,
But gone unchecked, like suddenly, and like it's crazy. And it becomes completely not untenable all of a sudden. It's the same thing with targeting. Think that the idea of targeting was, okay, well, we're asking people, what do you not like about advertising? And it's like, well, I look at this newspaper and like, I don't need women's underwear. I'm a man. And it's like, well, okay, well, women also read this newspaper. So it's like, but with digital technology, we have the ability to show specific ads to specific people at specific times. And so that coupled with the fact that, but we know their gender, we know their age, we know what city they're in, we can do all these things. And so there was this pure intention of, we're going to serve more personalized ads to make your ad experience better. And gone unchecked, the backside, the backlash of that is that now people feel creeped out. It's like, how does this website know that I was looking at those shoes last week?
Because it sort of gets to how much can we know? Like, we know you're a man, we know you live here, but how much more can we know?
Or should you know? It's about consent. I used to say, with advertising, digital advertising, imagine you were standing on a sidewalk and you had a bowl of free samples and you had to hand them out to people walking down the street. I used to think that's a good analogy because you only want to target based off of things that are obvious without having to talk to someone or dig deeper. But now I don't like that anymore because that in itself is including so much bias. Like if I'm giving out, I always use makeup in my example. If I'm giving out makeup samples, I'm probably going to choose like mostly women or like effeminate looking men. I'm not going to hand it to like some big like burling Viking looking guy. But who knows, maybe he has an acne problem and he actually does use a lot of makeup and he's really good at it and I just can't tell. So I've started to like really backtrack and I'm thinking the less targeting, the better. Like if you just target based off of, I don't even know,
broad terms,
broad strokes. Like you're in this city where the product is sold, for example. Like if I saw an ad for a cafe in Honolulu while in Stockholm, it's kind of stupid. Like I'm not going to go there anytime soon.
You might be their target customer, but
I'm not the right place, you know? I don't know how I got started on that.
Like we were talking before, we could talk about this forever.
It was the downside. It's how it can go really wrong. So I think like almost every single step, almost every stage of digital advertising evolution and internet advertising evolution has been in good intentions. My problem or my frustration that I see is that with technology, and this is not just digital technology, but it's all technology. Oftentimes we come up with technology. Like, what is technology? It's a method or a tool to automate or simplify something that's otherwise annoying. Yeah. We have hammers because if I want to put a nail in there without a hammer, that's really hard. It's going to hurt, or I have to do the rock or something, hammer, very convenient. Yeah. So that's technology. And with digital technology, there is this whole removed layer where I don't have to produce anything physical. I don't have to ship anything. There's a lot less cost involved in it. Yeah. So there's an easier market to get into it. And you have people that are very smart and very well-intentioned, but they're not from that world. So you have these data scientists or analysts, and they come into the advertising world from the ad tech side, but they don't understand the whole other side of like the emotional side of advertising. And so they get completely separated. And that's been another big shift or divide between the advertising worlds is you have like broadcast, so TV and cinema and stuff, and you have print like magazines and newspapers. And then you have digital, which is, social media and websites. And creative quality on those two things, two different worlds. Like, I think about Max hamburgers a lot.
Yeah, I love Max.
Yeah, like their in-store experience, amazing. Yeah. Everything is so well designed. Their TV ads are beautiful. It's like they have the branding is spot on, the timing, everything is so nice. Their social media, like their Instagram account, beautiful. Everything they do is beautiful. And then their banner ads is like a caveman with like a big sledgehammer, where it's like, here is a Google map that shows you all the nearest Max. It's like, okay, this is assuming that I know what Max is. This is assuming that I know what there's just so many assumptions that go along with it. And it's because like that's how digital advertising has been transformed to be focused on these metrics that have been imposed only on digital and not being imposed on the traditional forms of advertising.
And I'm also thinking about how this digital age makes words so much. I'm thinking of, let's take for example Twitter and how politicians can use that and how much these words can affect our discourse. Yeah, it can be very useful having someone who can objectively analyze what words are being used and what effect that might have.
Definitely.
So I see it being more important in this digital age as well.
Absolutely. Like on one part of the story is really that we need to understand that, for example, politicians strive for popularity and gaining engagement, and so that's the reality of the parties as well. So they are always looking at data in order to get more engagement. And nothing creates more engagement like entertainment or fear or using our fear and trying to use that as driving engagement. Yeah. So that could actually change the way you talk because you want to, connect with your audience group. Yeah. So that's one part of it. Like we have a recent example of one Swedish party with a spokesperson talking about a man begging on a bus. Yeah. Yeah. And they didn't let a woman into the bus, but based on a picture that he has seen in social media. But what happened was that the woman was refused on the bus. Yeah. She wasn't refused on the bus. First of all, the guy was praying on his lunch break. Okay. His break. Yeah. So she wasn't supposed to enter the bus.
The bus wasn't in service.
No, it wasn't in service. So she wasn't supposed to enter the bus. But what happened is that he took this picture out of context, put it on Twitter, and said that this is disgraceful. I don't remember the actual quote. I have to be very keen to say that. But and that started to circulate as well. And it took that image from other, social media accounts. Yeah. It's
so
very, very dangerous
Yeah.
because obviously he sees something that will generate attention and a lot of, reach.
Yeah.
So that's one part of it.
And could easily get away with it if no one's monitoring these types of behaviors.
Exactly, and it plays on fear and prejudice against people. So he's building on that, and sometimes you're not even aware that you're doing it. I mean, Trump is another example of doing this too. Muslim has been a target group for him for a long time since his presidential campaign. But I mean, the reason you could connect his Twitter tweets. Oh my God, I'm too old, or I don't know, or I'm too young to don't understand what Twitter. What's that?
What's this? Yeah.
You see him on Snapchat. When his Twitter, in his tweets, when he targeted Latinos. And you could perhaps connect it to the attack in Cabasa, for example.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes.
Donald Trump must be a really easy case for your type of data.
Yeah.
Is it like he's very clear in his?
He's very clear, and there's so many examples, and there's also previous studies that has been done on the topic.
Yeah.
So I think that it's a good way of sometimes compare the situation in the States versus Sweden because they have more, accessible numbers on how, for example, the presidential campaign affected hate crimes regarding towards certain groups that were mentioned in Donald Trump's speeches, for example, or in his tweets, and you could connect them.
Yeah.
So that's something we also would like to look at, and to have closer partnership with the police to get records and compare, and to see if there is if you can see an effect from the rhetorical framing of politicians. Yeah.
Sort of bringing the data into real life, what's really going on in actuality.
Exactly, and faster. That's why we can't do it manually.
No, of course.
That's why we need a part machine, part human, in order to do this more quicker.
So, talking about diversity and inclusion in large, what does this do to the world? What type of society are we hoping to see with a broader, more a bigger diversity?
Well, we can see. I know that a lot of reports say that the bigger diversity, the more perspectives, the higher innovation, and so on. And we need innovation in order to survive as a species, basically. And we can't do that unless we work together, obviously. Yeah. So globalization is the key to survival. And what we can see is the more perspectives that we involve in all matters, the better we get off. So we've done a little bit of research. Is we've taken 3 groups of people where first one has high perspective density, the one is mid perspective density, and the last one is low perspective density. And we've added inclusive leadership to all 3 groups, where you can see with the low, and we asked them all the same question, one question. The first one we saw that with the low perspective density group with not that many perspectives, we've got approximately 12 answers to the question. The mid one we got 70. The last one we got 120.
How big groups was it?
The same size, 10.
Okay, wow.
Which means that if you do have somebody that can, like a leadership that can harvest the differences, the different perspectives in teams, in people, that's where we have innovation. Wow. And that's why innovation is created. So what we make sure is that we have as many perspectives as possible, but then include inclusive leadership, people that have the ability, that have the knowledge and competence to harvest all the what different perspectives actually mean. So when they disagree, somebody comes in like, this is interesting. You disagree. Why? Give me more answers. Like, what is that? That's where you find solutions to pains.
Yes.
And that's how we survive as species.
The mission is basically to make the future of the internet fair and beautiful for everybody. I want it to be, I see the internet as a human right. As an American, when I moved to Sweden, and I found out that in Sweden, you can't sell an apartment or a house or rent an apartment or a house without having high-speed internet, which is like on the same level. It has to have water, electricity, and high-speed internet. Like, that's like, what? It's amazing, because that's what the world needs. Like, we need that. Yeah. We need that connections.
Connectivity.
And yes, we need that exposure. And I fear that the major players of the internet right now are still focused too much on the publisher pocket and not on the user experience for the greater internet as a whole. And that's what I see technology as doing. Technology tends to automate one section without looking how it affects the entire machine.
So you get a data point that you're focused in on, and just improving that data point without looking at the whole picture.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you speed up this thing, it's going to speed up this cog, but then this one's going to slow down over there as a result. And so my mission is to look at it from a whole perspective. Like, it's not just that we need better privacy rights. It's not just that we need better UX. We don't want ads that move content around and cover content. It's that we also need ads that remind us of like the golden age of advertising, where things were emotional and things were funny and like we appreciated seeing them. And with all of those things combined, I believe that this would ensure a future of people not hating internet advertising the way that they do. Because the same people who enjoy a digital out-of-home experience or a TV ad are the same people who don't like internet ads. I was in a conference room one time with 400 people, and I asked, all right, everybody, stand up if you have an ad block plugin installed on your computer that blocks all ads. And like maybe 24 or 25% stood up or something. I was like, okay, you who are standing, stay standing if you voted in your last political election in your home country. And almost everyone stayed standing. And like they all kind of looked around and there was kind of like an awkward silence and then some laughter. And like everyone was like, what are you doing? And I was like, don't you see? Like, you on one hand see that you do have power. When you vote, this happened again. It's like my hairs go straight up. When you vote, you understand. When you vote, you understand that you might be one person, but you one person collected with thousands other, that makes a big change. When you use ad block, it's the opposite, because you're blocking the ad, the publisher's not making the revenue, so then more aggressive ads come in, the ones that move the content down, the websites that no longer have ads because you ad blocked them, and now you have to pay for that content that you wanted otherwise, and maybe that article would have changed your life, but you and everyone else used ad block.
This is probably a hard question, but if you were to guess, how far off are we in realizing and making these changes in a broader perspective?
That's a very hard question. It depends really what you want to do and which perspectives you want to include, and where you have your end game, basically. Like, what are you aiming for? What are you in for, and how do you want Sweden or the Nordics to be perceived or develop in maybe 50, 100 years? Like, it's very long perspectives. But on short-based perspective, for example, a company comes to us and they have a real challenge. They are pumping a lot of money into buying media. They do great content. Everything's working content-wise. But it's not inclusive. It's not targeted right. It's not segmented right. So when they run their campaign, for example, in social media, they shoot the campaign to a very broad audience group. So they spend a lot of money not getting the effective outcome. So what we do instead, we based on data-driven insights and quantitative surveys, because that's what we basically do. We do large quantitative surveys among minority groups. Based on those insights, we create a campaign which is inclusive, and we segmentate the audiences towards just based on language and based on cultural values, and it's not homogenic in that sense. Like they're in like for Arabic speaking minority groups, there are lots of different kinds of people living lots of different kinds of lives, being Christians and Muslims and atheists and non-believers and believers in Star Trek. Like it's so people are so complex. You need to understand this complexity, and then you need to talk and communicate in a way that they actually understand and build trust to your company or to your authority or whatever you want to call it. But like we need to get these people activated. They want to get activated. Yes. They're not sitting on the couch lazy. They want to do stuff. They want to do great stuff. Like one of our co-workers been in Sweden for 5 years. Before we met him, he was unemployed. He has MBA, from London School of Economics. Yeah. He's worked at a bank, but he's unemployed. Why? He's been going to trainee, but they don't keep him. So that's a huge problem. At the same time, a lot of companies are screaming after diverse group or diverse co-workers, but they haven't really solved that challenge yet. How do we know these people? How do we get insights from these people? And how do we adjust our communication and marketing or our values or as we call it, inclusive infrastructures within the companies to actually make them welcome and give them the space and freedom to actually develop and co-create.
That's great.
Did I forget something?
No, I think you said that like.
Yeah, it was a perfect answer.
No, but it's something that really lies here,
because we are the target group. I think that with our perspectives, for us, this is not a job.
No.
So much more.
You framed Open Act as a human rights organization.
Yeah.
Could you give us that connection?
Well, we believe that on the long term, we're trying to strive for the UN's Global Goal 16, which is striving for an inclusive, peaceful society.
Oh yeah.
And our job we are monitoring plays a part in that. A small part of the puzzle perhaps, but an important part of the puzzle.
So that's the way you see the human rights in, what was it, point number 16? Vad heter den?
It's to strive for a peaceful and inclusive societies.
Oh yeah. So that's how you see human rights coming in and striving for a more inclusive society.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that, data has been a tool for us to prove how rhetorics can hinder our journey towards that goal and to actually, put the brakes towards that goal. So I think that we're trying to take away the hinders for us to reach that goal.
Oh yeah.
Because if we start to talk about you versus me, or them versus us, we're never going to have an inclusive, peaceful society because we're going to create tensions between different groups and individuals. So I think we have a role really to take away the hinders for us to achieve the global goal 16.
Oh yeah.
In a sense.
Thank you for sharing your great insights. Really, wow. I've learned a lot, and one thing this got me thinking of is how probably you were talking about the future. This digital life, our digital being, it's becoming more and more intrusive. So with that, it should be beautiful as well.
Yeah. I never thought about it, but yeah. Absolutely. That's what I want. I don't want. I don't want the internet to be a crutch. It should be a tool to increase connectivity and happiness.
Yeah, well-being.
Yeah, it shouldn't be like a drug or something that we become dependent on.
Awesome, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for having me.
Learnability podcast is produced by Levels, working in the fields of digital transformation, innovation, product development, and venture. If you want to know more about us, visit at wearelevels.com. And oh yeah, if you want to find additional material and contribute to the platform, you can do that at learnability.online. That's learnability.online. Looking forward to getting in touch with you. And oh yeah, stay curious.